Good morning and welcome to this week's Midweek Mini. I hope y'all are having a good week so far. Now, we've made it halfway through the week at this point, and today we're going to talk about a missing persons, or maybe I should say a missing child case from 1957 that I came across the other night by accident. A lot of my stories lately, or episodes lately, have been coming from these accidents. But first, before we get started on that, I'm going to talk about a couple of missing persons cases, giving y'all updates about some stories that I told y'all about on Friday on What the Friday. So let's get today's episode started.
Triple Studios proudly presents the Midweek Mini, and here's your host, Andrea Lee.
All right, if you listened on Friday night, you know that I talked about several missing persons cases from here in South Carolina. Now, two of those cases were Alexis Ware and Cheyenne Boone. Unfortunately, on those two cases, there's not been any new information released, but I'm diligently following them. And that third case that I talked about was Zamaya Carter. Now, you may have heard my update Monday that Zamaya had been located and was safe, and they found her on Sunday night. Well, after I did that update, some shocking information was released about her whereabouts. But first, y'all, I want to say that I'm not bad-mouthing Zamaya, and that's not my intent at all. So yesterday afternoon, I learned that Zamaya had been a runaway, but they were treating her case as a missing person because her location was unknown. I also learned about where they had found her. Now, apparently she and another person had broken into the home of someone who had been away for a few days. When that person returned to their home, they found that their home had been broken into. Some of their cars had been damaged, and people were still inside the home. When police arrived, one person had already left the scene, but there was a closet door that wouldn't open. When police called for them to come out, Zamaya exited the closet. And it's still not clear what role Zamaya played in this, but she told police that she was a runaway and she had been in the home with another person for several days. Zamaya was taken into custody and her identity has been confirmed. Now, authorities say they have a person of interest that they're looking for in this case. Y'all, again, I'm not bad-mouthing or whatever. I'm just telling you the information that's been released. And, I'm not gonna bash a kid because we don't know, what was going on in her mind at that time. And her parents had to be worried out of their mind about where she had gone. And I'm just happy that she's been located and she's okay. Now we're going to move on to the main topic for the episode. But like I said, I stumbled across this story by accident when I was searching for something entirely different the other night. A little girl named Mary Jane, she was only 3 years old when she vanished while she was outside playing with a friend in their South New Jersey neighborhood. She wasn't alone though, because that friend, the friend's name was Maria Frietta. She had a Cocker Spaniel puppy that was with Mary Jane when she went missing. Now, can you imagine the horror of letting your child go out to play with her friend and then she just seems to vanish into thin air? Well, unfortunately, this seems to happen a lot, and not just recently. Missing children cases have been happening for many, many years. Now, like I said, again, this was in 1957. So Mary Jane's parents were positive she'd been kidnapped, and they made pleas to her abductor in the local newspaper for her to be returned. And further fueling their belief that she had truly been kidnapped was the fact that when search parties were organized to look for Mary Jane, 3 sets of footprints were found by a stream, and those footprints appeared to belong to a man, a child, and a dog. Like I said, the puppy that belonged to her friend Maria had disappeared along with Mary Jane. Police did follow up on this and other leads that they had gotten, but those leads went nowhere. They were just basically dead ends. Well, with no positive leads, the small town that they lived in New Jersey was in this state of being anxious and bewildered. They were probably thinking, could their child be the next to be kidnapped? And if it wasn't a kidnapping, what had happened to little Mary Jane? The anxiety and bewilderment didn't last long, though, because on March 3rd, 1957, Mary Jane was found. Maria and her family went to the house that had been being built next door to them, but the owner hadn't moved in yet, and the owner of that home had actually been Maria's aunt. When Maria opened the door to a closet, her puppy came jumping out, all frisky and everything, and appeared to be fine. But poor little Mary Jane wasn't fine. She had died in that closet a few days before being found. Now, that closet wasn't locked, but officers found that a latch knob on the inside of the closet had jammed, and Mary Jane couldn't get out, even though the door could be easily opened from the outside. Now, on the inside side of the door, like what would be in with Mary Jane and the puppy, police found scratch and scuff marks, and that led police to believe that Mary Jane had tried to kick her way out. The autopsy showed that Mary Jane had been alive when she entered the closet. Starvation, dehydration, and shock was the official cause of death in the case. Mary Jane hadn't had anything to eat since the day she went missing, and it was also stated that it is believed that she passed away on her 4th birthday. So how did the puppy survive when Mary Jane had not? Well, this puzzled the authorities too, so get this. In order to figure that out, the puppy was euthanized so that its stomach contents could be analyzed. Yep, they put that poor puppy to sleep. Well, the results of that haven't really been published anywhere that I could find, but police did notice that there was no poop or pee from the puppy being in the closet. And, they had been in there for over a week at this point, or at the point when they had been found. So one possible explanation is that the puppy had been eating his own waste to survive. Now, after Mary Jane's body was found and the scene was investigated, it was decided that there was no foul play that caused her death. After her death, the mayor of their town, his name was Cornelius Davenel, he issued an order saying that all closet doors must be equipped with knobs that are easy to open from the inside as well as the outside. I can't stop myself from thinking about how scared that little girl and the puppy must have been in that cold, dark closet with no way out. And I have a couple of questions too. I mean, if there was no foul play suspected, how did it come about that Mary Jane had gotten herself into the closet and couldn't, of course we know how she couldn't get out, but I mean, maybe she and Maria were playing hide and seek, and we know that the house was beside Maria's house, so maybe it seemed like a good hiding spot, or maybe the little girls were just curious and went exploring in the house. But why did it take for so long for somebody to check the closets in that house? Now, one newspaper article that I read from back then said that the house was searched 3 times by volunteers. You would think that during one of those searches, somebody would have checked the closet or the closets. Now, there was about a week in between the time that she disappeared and her body was discovered. Then there's the question I have about the puppy, and that's why didn't it bark? Every dog I've ever owned has barked to let me know that they want in or out. And, puppies will bark when they feel lonely, so I'm sure at some point he was feeling lonely in that closet. Or maybe he did bark, but no one heard his little tiny yips, I doubt we'll ever know the answers to any of those questions. Well, that's all I have for today's Midweek Mini. Have a good rest of your day, and don't forget to come back on Friday evening for an all-new What the Friday.